fellow colleagues, member of the Islamic Development Bank, this blessed institution. I would like to welcome you to this side events to debate an important question at the center of global problems and global solutions is the question of energy supply. I'd like to thank every and each and single person of you for making your way to attend this event. We are extremely honored and feel extremely privileged for the matter. Without further delay, let me introduce the topic, the energy supply, the changing dynamics of energy supply security, resources diversification, regional integration and connectivity. It's a certainly very broad topic, and we can in no way cover all of it. However, we would like to hear and listen to each member of this panel for their vision, for their achievement, for their problems, for the challenges, and what kind of recommendations we can aim at the end of this gathering. Energy, it's important. Why? Defending a human rights cause is a certainly noble cause that everybody should aim to do so. But human rights are not only a right to education, a right to food, a right to security, a right to freedom of speech and expression is not only also a right to sustainable development. All these rights are subject to have a sustainable and secure access to energy. Could we talk about economic growth? We do have many finance ministers today among us, and the objective of the economic science is to generate growth. Can we talk about growth without energy? Can we talk about existence without energy? The dilemma is we have less energy for greater demand. We live in a digital world where our children are connected to the cloud via a specific device called a tablet or a computer or a smartphone. If we live so, certainly we need more energy. In the last 2 years, the energy market have been special for a new mutation into the sector. We have witnessed a severe decline in investments and capital expenditures into the energy sectors. Can you imagine that no less than 500 billion US dollars have been removed from the investments in the oil and gas sector? We should know that every dollar that is not invested today is probably and maybe a barrel of oil or cubic meter of gas that will not be produced in the coming years. Listening to net importer countries, they claim that exporting countries are using more and more energy for their own use at a very subsidized prices and will not be able to supply in the very far future. Exporting countries, they claim that when market is down, they are left on their own to finance the infrastructure for a global market. Probably both sides are right, and none of them is wrong. So the question today, should we increase the energy mix at the price of the price? Should we depend on the markets and make our strategy down to the spot volatile prices of the market? The question of energy is certainly important. We are in the largest Muslim country, Indonesia, a very interesting case study for the energy sector. I would like to, with no delay, to start with the first presentation, which is part of the technical analysis or a technical debate, by inviting Dr. Fatih Birol, the Chief Executive of the International Energy Agency, who couldn't make it today, but he was kind enough to send us his presentation via a teleconference. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to greet you from Paris, from the IEA headquarters. Unfortunately, I couldn't be with you today, but I hope to discuss with you key energy issues through this link. I would like to brief you about the global energy markets. When we look at the global energy markets today, there are two major preoccupations of almost all stakeholders. One, the low energy prices and their impact on the economies, as well as whether or not they will be with us very long time. And the second preoccupation of the people are impact of environmental issues on the energy system. Let me address these two issues in the next few days. When you look at the energy demand, where does the demand come from? We see that the advanced economies, Europe, US and Japan, their energy demand will decline because they will use energy much more efficiently. And their economy is not growing strongly, and their population growth came to a halt in many cases. Emerging countries in Middle East, Southeast Asia, Africa, as well as China and India will be the drivers of the global energy demand. The reason is that economies are growing, populations are growing, therefore the energy demand growth comes from them. And this growth needs to be supported by new energy facilities, power plants, refineries, transmission lines, oil fields, gas fields, and we expect that the world needs each year 2.7 trillion US dollar in order to make these investments. And we expect these investments will come from the public funds, but growingly from the private funds. In many countries, mobilizing investment can well be a major challenge. Now, a big question mark about the energy markets is, what is the oil price outlook? Before telling you what is our price expectation, I wanted to tell you why we think we had such low oil prices in the last few months or 2 years. We had a demand growth in the last years, 2014 and 15, but the growth in the production was much higher than the demand, mainly driven by US shale oil production, but also a strong growth coming from Iraq. As a result of that, more oil was in the market, stocks were getting bigger and bigger, and this put a pressure, downward pressure on the prices. But now, as a result of the lower prices, we see a decline in the non-OPEC regions, especially in the United States and Canada. Their production is declining, and therefore we expect that the stocks, which have grown strongly in the last 2 years, are going to go down, and we expect towards the end of this year, or latest by 2017, the markets will be rebalanced, and we may see an upward pressure to the oil prices. Now, looking at the gas markets, a major change is happening in the gas markets. We have already some major LNG, liquefied natural gas exporters, such as Qatar, the champion, like Indonesia and other countries. But in the next 5 years, we expect a huge wave of LNG coming from US and from Australia. More than 90% of the new capacity for LNG will come from US, mainly shale gas, and Australia, which will put a downward pressure on the LNG prices. Renewable energies growing very strongly across the world, in Asia, in Europe, in Latin America and elsewhere. This is for two reasons renewables are growing: solar, wind, and others. One reason is governments are providing support, subsidies, and the second reason is the cost of renewables are declining. They are becoming cheaper. Onshore wind, for example, in the last 7 years, their cost declined about 1/3. The solar PV cost declined by 80%. And on the efficiency side, the LEDs declined substantially, which means that we will see more and more renewables, especially wind, solar, and hydropower in the electricity mix, and renewables will move from being a niche market to a mainstream fuel.
Thank you very much.
These are some thoughts that we wanted to share with you.
Thank you very much. Without further delay, I call the representative of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources for Indonesia to give his presentation.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm sorry I deliver in my speech in Indonesian language, I think.
I think this presentation, I will present this presentation in Bahasa Indonesia, in Indonesian, because my English and your English might be a little bit different, and I feel more confident speaking in Bahasa Indonesia. And this is about the challenges Indonesia faces in the electricity sector. And the efforts that has been put in by Indonesia to be able to overcome the challenges. This presentation will be divided into 5 topics. The first one would be government regulation. And secondly, the Indonesia's electricity condition in 2015. And the third one are the challenges in the electricity sector. And fourth, the efforts to address these challenges. And finally, closing. So If we try to illustrate the entire policies are regulated so that we're able to generate a synchronization. And if we look here, if, if we look at the bottom row, we can see there the 1945 Constitution of the Republic of Indonesia. All regulations should stem from there. All regulations should be able to uphold all the aspirations within the Constitution. Now we would like to focus more on the energy, and therefore the law on energy must comply with the Constitution, and this also goes for the law on electricity. Law on electricity number 30, 2009 must also be in compliance with the Constitution, as had been said by the moderator, that every country must be able to maintain the basic rights of their people, and therefore, even in Indonesia, to realize the basic rights of the people, the government creates regulations, including on how Indonesia manages its energy resources. And all of these policies, both for energy and electricity, is stipulated in the National Energy Plan and the National Plan for Electricity and the National Plan for the regions and the electricity supply that are managed by the regional companies. So in this case, we developed the bills because this is one of the tools that has been prepared by the Indonesian State Electricity Company to develop Indonesia's electricity, and which is endorsed by the government. And now we are currently waiting for its finalization, the finalization for the plan to generate electricity nationally. This becomes extremely important because in the national plan to provide electricity supplies, all other government programs are integrated there because, as we know, we have a 35,000 megawatt program that we would like to achieve soon. And if we look at the program to take advantage of the fossil fuels, including coal and others, and how we are able to manage the renewable and the new energy, like the new energy such as nuclear. Well, Indonesia is not looking at that at this much, but we're more interested towards renewable energy, such as the new and renewable energy, such as water, wind, solar, all of which has been developed and are currently ongoing. And this will become the primary target of Indonesia. And this has become a national policy, and which states that all fossil energy must be managed by taking advantage of the renewable energy, because Indonesia has huge potential in renewable energy. For solar, Indonesia has around 4.8 kilowatt hour per day, whereas wind, Indonesia, of course, it's not like the subtropical areas, we have about 5.2 meters per second as the maximum. And what about the management of electricity provision in Indonesia? As has been said, management of electricity is carried out by the state. Therefore, all policies that relate to electricity cannot divert from the policies of the state. And because in the management of the business, because it has now become a commodity, then the decisions are managed by the state-owned enterprises, regionally owned enterprises, private entities, corporates, and self-reliant communities. These are the agents or the institutions that will manage Indonesia's electricity supply. Previously, we had a cooperative, and if you have perhaps heard about Indonesia's history, Indonesia once had the Sinar Sumego cooperative, but the company has gone bankrupt because of mismanagement, and now it has been taken over by the state electricity company. Private entities, if we look at the one in Tarakan today, if you have time, you may want to go to Tarakan, and perhaps you could also go to the island of Batam, which is close to Singapore. This is one of the regions that is managed by the private sector, although the shares are fully owned by the Indonesian State Electricity Company. And then if you have time, perhaps you can visit Cikarang Listrik Kindo in Cikarang that manages the electricity for the industrial estates. So in Indonesia, we have those that are managed by the cooperatives, but that has gone bankrupt. As I mentioned, Sinar Sumego cooperatives in Sumatra, in the province of Lampung. And then there's also the Sinar Rinjani cooperatives in Western Nusa Tenggara, and which has also closed down, and also one in North Sulawesi, which has also gone bankrupt. And this is the condition of Indonesia's energy mix at the present. If we're able to realize the 2013 target, we hope that we'll be able to achieve coal in 2025, 25%, gas 25%, and renewable energy 23%. This is our hopes, and this is on a national scale. But in terms of electricity, this is on a national level. The ones on the top is on a national level, and the one on the bottom is for power generation. We hope that by 2025, we will only use oil 1% and gas 4% and renewable energy 25% and coal 53%. This is the condition that Indonesia hopes to achieve, and this is a challenge that Indonesia is faced with. And of course, we cannot manage this alone, and we would require partners to be able to develop this business. Indonesia is a large country and has sufficient energy supply, but in its utilization, as I have said, would require a significant amount of money, and therefore would require the mobilization of the existing renewable energy, so that up to now, the total connectivity in Indonesia, including those that are managed by the private sector, is 55,528 megawatts, or 55 gigawatts, while the current energy production is 283 terawatt hour, and used is 228 terawatt hour. And the ratio of Indonesia's electrification at present the electrification ratio is 88.3%, and electricity used is 910 kilowatt hours. So if we compare this to the neighboring countries within the ASEAN region, we are among the lowest, and we cannot compare with Singapore and Malaysia. The length of transmission line in Indonesia is 49,325 kilometers circuit, and the length of distribution line is 925,312 kilometers. That's close to a million. So if we compare this to the extent of Indonesia, this is still far below what is required. And these are some of the challenges that we are faced with today. Electricity consumption 910, and this has gone up. 788 has changed, and this is the condition of the per capita in ASEAN. Indonesia is one of the lowest. So, and Indonesia is coincidentally also the largest Muslim population. So these are some of the challenges we must be able to overcome. And if we look at the other challenges, look at the vast extent of Indonesia. We need to be able to achieve a ratio of electricity of 37.8% by 2019. And the next challenge that we need to resolve, of course, again, we cannot do this alone. We would require a partner. We would require investors. These are the programs that have been put in place. These are what we have achieved. This is the progress, and you can take a look at it by yourselves because it would be too long to describe it. This is a progress. This is pre-construction, which is the one on the top and has become the responsibility of IDB, and the condition of the construction at present, and how many are already COD or commercial operation date. This is the pipeline that is outside of the 35,000. There's 7.5, 7.4. So all those 7.4 megawatt is already in the construction phase, and some are already in the COD phase. And these are the efforts, these are the regulations that have been formulated by the government to make it easy for investors to carry out businesses in Indonesia. And these are the steps that we have taken. There are the obstacles and the solutions. So we try to formulate the regulations in such a way so that things like land acquisition, price negotiation, procurement, bidding process, and performance, contractor performance, project management, across control of all sections, all of these have been resolved through the existing regulations. And this is what we have done to be able to overcome regional connection. We have the National Power Grid Program. Here we can see Singkawang, Bengkayang, up to Sarawak. The Kalimantan Barat or West Kalimantan Sarawak interconnection, and these are the sector challenges in order to increase the national electrification ratio. And this is Indonesia's program to overcome the low electrification level, and therefore Indonesia has developed a program called Indonesia Terang or Bright Indonesia, and this has just been launched. And this program aims to provide electricity to the whole of Indonesia. From the left, we can see here from the left side. It used to be from the left side, and now we have changed it from the right side. So we want to make Indonesia light up, and this is in the night. I think these are the solutions that we have taken to provide electricity to the remote areas. We have carried out photovoltaic and communal power plant like this one. We also use solar home system, and we have also used mini hydro in the remote areas. And this is the energy resilience. This is our needs. And this is what we are working on now. How to overcome fossil depletion, state budget, including climate change fund. We need to manage this well so that it can be used to light up Indonesia and to provide energy security. And then there's energy development, then energy conservation, enhancement, human resource research and development, including pilot projects, energy supply diversification to maintain energy mix, oil stabilization fund, and strategic petroleum reserve. So we have an energy resilience fund. Known in Indonesia as Dana Ketahanan Energy, and this is in closing. So I can say that energy supply security is important to be one part of the diversification. Indonesia, as part of strengthened supply, Indonesia has a policy to not rely on one energy resource, but to diverse its energy by maximizing renewable energy utilization, both in primary energy and in power generation. As an effort to secure electricity supply meets the demand, increase kilowatt hour per capita and electrification ratio, the Light Up Indonesia, the program, has been launched by the government to secure electricity supply for 12,659 villages that has no electricity supplies. So we have challenges to provide electricity for these villages.
Indonesia Terang program. And then energy resilience funds need to be established by the government as part of effort to increase renewable energy utilization in the near future. Saya kira demikian paparan kami.
And I think that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Mr. Mansour, thank you very much indeed for this presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very conscious of time, and without further wait, I'll invite the representative of the General Directorate of Indonesian Electricity Company, PLN, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Excellencies, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for us from PT PLN Persero, the state-owned electricity company, to share some information regarding the development of electricity in Indonesia, which it's still in line with the strategy of the government of Indonesia, which has been delivered by the previous speaker. This is the structure which forming the PT PLN Persero under the government of Indonesia. And we have three major stakeholders, which is Ministry of State-Owned Enterprises, Ministry of Energy, Mine and Mines Resources, and Ministry of Finance. And we have 11 subsidiaries. This is our company profile. Installed capacity is 51 gigawatt. You can see that the number is different because the previous speaker was talking about the national, while I'm only talking about PLN. And we have 61 million customers with the total revenue last year. It's more than 20 billion US dollar. This is a trend of tariff and subsidy. Why this is important? Because here there is still a gap between our production costs and the selling costs. So there is an evolution from 2005 until 2015, but the trend is declining, meaning that we are trying to reach the target to reduce the subsidy that has been given by the government. This is the power development plan for the next 10 years, which comprises of coal-fired, 45%, gas turbine and combined cycle, 25%, hydro, 19%, geothermal, 8%, and others, including the renewables, is 3%. This is the fuel mix. Yeah. In 2016, batu bara means coal will account for 58%. Yeah. In 2025, it will still be 56%, more than 50%. But we can see that the geothermal and hydro and renewables will increase. For those of you who may already be aware that we have what we call 35,000 megawatt, or we call it 35 gigawatt program, which is a part of our long-term electricity development plan, which was set up last year. The total on the next 10 years, we will build more than 70 gigawatt of power generations and transmissions, more than 60,000 kilometer circuit, and substations, more than 145 gigavolt ampere, and the capex is 1,586 trillion rupiah. Here are the spreading out of the 35,000 megawatt program across Indonesia. We can see that it is still concentrated on the main island, which is Java Island, followed by Sumatra and other islands. This graph shows the compositions of the IPP and PLN. For example, the generation portions will be covered 33% by PLN, and the rest is from the IPP. Transmission, IPP only account for 7%, the rest by PLN, as well as the IPP for the substations only accounts for 5%. This is the economic activities that we hope will be geared up by the 35,000 megawatt. There will be 402 new power plants, and there will be 35,000 sets of transmission tower. It will use aluminum conductor, transformers, and we hope that it will involve more than 650,000 workforce So we do hope that it will support the economic development. TKDN means the local content. We hope that minimum we will reach more than 40% of local content. This is our strategy for financing. We can utilize internal funding, other funding resources, government budget, as well as two-step loan. For other funding resources, we can issue the obligations. We also utilize the export credit agencies, direct lending without and with government guarantees, which is related to what we have with the IDB, and also we can use the National Bank syndication. Here are our new and renewable energy potentials. For hydro, we have 35 gigawatt, and solar, geothermal, and so on, wind turbine, bioenergy, and also the tidal, which the total will be 866 gigawatt, but only around 1% in place. So it's very, very minimum. We have set up also what we call 1,000 islands for photovoltaic development programs, which is 620 megawatt peak across Indonesia. SSPLT Bayu means wind turbine. And this is for the smart grid. We have also developed the smart grid with 10 pilot projects. And this is, as explained by previous speaker, that we have also interconnection with the West Kalimantan to Sarawak, Malaysia, and also we have in the pipeline from Sumatra Island to Peninsular Malaysia. Let me brief you some information on our latest IDB financing to PLN. This is according to the latest presidential decree. This is the executive summary. So we will, I think it's just a matter of time. So hopefully that by the 19th of May, we will have a loan signing for 330 million US dollar with the Islamic Development Bank. So thanks to IDB for making this realize. This is the objective, goal, and output of the outcome. So it will be covering the total 206 high voltage power transformer with location in Sumatra, in Java, as well as Kalimantan and Sulawesi Island. And that's all. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much for these two technical presentations. We now move forward for the high-level panel discussion, and it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome His Excellency Mehmet Simsek, the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic and Financial Affairs and IDB Governor from Turkey. An extended pleasure is to welcome His Excellency, Mr. Mohammed Boussaid, the Minister of Economy and Finance and IDB Governor from the Kingdom of Morocco. I also feel privileged to welcome Her Excellency, Madame Hadizatou Rosine Sori Coulibaly, Minister of Economy, Finance and Development, and IDB Governor from Burkina Faso. I also give my warm welcome to His Excellency Mr. Idrissa Tiam, former Minister of Energy and Minister Advisor to the President of the Republic of Guinea. Least but not last, I welcome His Excellency Mr. Al-Hajj Mahmoud Issa Dutse, Permanent Secretary of Finance and IDB Alternate Governor on behalf of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Going forward, I welcome all the panelists for taking the time and finding the time to be here among us to share their views. I will, for your convenience, I will give you 5 minutes probably each to share the vision of respective countries in terms of energy and what has been achieved. And then we can take further questions. If, with your attention and authorization, I call Mr. Mehmet Simsek, the Deputy Prime Minister for Economic Affairs of the Republic of Turkey.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, brothers, sisters, I'm delighted to be here in Jakarta, and I'd like to thank Indonesian government for their warm hospitality. Subject is energy supply security. Of course, energy is critical to any economy in terms of economic competitiveness, in terms of investments, development in general. And the long-term supply is largely a function of timely investments as well as supply chains. That's why I think creating a market for energy that is investor-friendly, that is predictable, competitive, fair, is absolutely critical. Because I think, at least in our part of the world, we no longer rely on government resources to ensure supply security. We rely more on private sector dynamism. And that's why I think developing a strong private, competitive internal market is absolutely critical. In the case of Turkey, we have privatized entire distribution networks. So distribution is 100% private. Generation is now 83% private, with only government accounting for about 17%, mostly composed of some hydropower plants that have dual uses, both for irrigation as well as power generation. Diversification is one key challenge. Of course, Turkey is a major consumer, but also much of energy is in east and north and south of Turkey. In a way, if you look at big sort of energy producers, they largely lie in east of Turkey. So Turkey is a major consumer as well as a key energy corridor. And that's why Turkey is usually seen as also critical to energy supply security for European Union, which is again a major consumer globally. So we are currently, of course, we currently have oil pipelines from Iraq, from Iran, from Russia, from Baku, from Azerbaijan, but also we now building, well, we have a natural gas pipeline again from Iran, from Russia, but also we're now building a Trans-Caspian natural gas pipeline that would ultimately bring Turkmeni and Azeri gas to Turkey as well as to the rest of Europe. And of course, there's also a fair bit of focus on Iraqi natural gas as well as Eastern Mediterranean natural gas. So as you can see, Turkey sits right in the middle of all this. As I said, our focus is, to develop a fairly competitive, transparent, private sector energy. So government role is more of one of, a fair broker. We have an energy exchange where prices are set. We have, in the stock exchange, we have an energy derivatives market. So we've actually put together almost all components of a fairly deregulated, fairly competitive energy market. For the sake of time, I'm going to stop here, and of course, later on, I'll answer our moderator's question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I will call Mr. Mohammed Boussaid, His Excellency, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs for Morocco.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين وآله وصحبه أجمعين. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, I am really very pleased and honored to be with you today to talk briefly about the Moroccan strategy in energy. As you may know, Morocco is a net importer of oil and gas. We don't have oil or gas. And Morocco is on the way for a big development. And of course, this development, as the former speaker said, need energy. But Morocco started also in the mid of 90s a big program of electrification of rural area. Now 99% of houses of Moroccan get electricity. All the development, economic development, and the demand increase by the householders made the increase of the demand in Morocco of electricity between 6 and 8% each year. Morocco get the importation of energy have a very big impact on our currency account, of course, but also have had a very big impact on our budget, because until 1 year and a half, the energy have been subsidized, and we start a very big reform to remove the subsidy on oil completely from 1 year and a half. Now the only subsidy is on cooking gas. And for the electricity, we announced a very ambitious program for energetic transition of Morocco. And this program, the ambition is to use 42% of our electricity will be from renewable energy. Probably have been following last February, His Majesty the King have launched the biggest solar plant in the world, in Ouarzazate. The first step was 160 megawatts, and we are on the way for the second phase and third phase. It will be for just this plant 1,000 megawatts, which will be the biggest solar plant in the world, using, of course, the technology of concentrated solar, and now this technology is permitting to reduce the cost, but also giving some flexibility for storage of electricity, so we announced 42% in 2020 from renewable energy, and in the last COP21 in Paris, Morocco announced that in 2030, 52% of our energy will be from the renewable energy. When we say the renewable energy, of course, it means solar, wind, and also hydroelectricity. So we are on the way to make this happening. At the 2030, we reduce by 32% of our CO2 emissions. This program will involve more than $40 billion of investment, of course, and we will it generates more than 10,000 megawatts, 4.5 megawatts will be from solar, and 4 from wind, and 1.4 from electricity. So Morocco, in this transition, want to show and want to participate as to this global effort to reduce and to preserve the climate and to reduce the climate change, which is one of the biggest issues of the humanity in this era. I will be pleased to probably answer to some of your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Thank you very much. I will call Her Excellency Hadizatu Sori Koulibaly, Minister of Economy and Finance and Development, IDB Governor, on behalf of Burkina Faso.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Je me réjouis.
I'm delighted to be here this afternoon, and I would like to really thank the IDB for the invitation extended to us, because for Burkina Faso, more than any other country, the issue of energy is an extremely important one. 2 persons out of 3 do not have access to electricity in my country. In my country, we have some 1,000 kilometers to have one access point. It is a landlocked country. The first speaker talked about human rights, and I think that the right to electricity is an important one when 40% of the population live under the poverty line. This is why this issue is an extremely important one, and I would like to thank you for inviting me again. In Burkina Faso, we have a sector policy on energy. This goes up to 2025 based on a number of options, based on 3 important criteria: the issue of efficiency, the best cost, as well as this issue of security, whether it is available, accessible, affordable, as well as the issue of reliability, whether the network or the grid is stable, because we have a great deal of energy losses in my country. Regarding the sector-based policy, we have as an objective to favor interconnectivity, interconnections. It is as I said, we are in a landlocked country, and I would like to commend the fact that Nigeria and Guinea are here present with us. And today we do not have a lot of renewables, but by 2010 we have a national plan, economic and social plan, that covers 2016 to 2020, and this objective, the aim is to reach 30% of renewables in the country, and we will also develop all the hydropower sites that have interesting potential for the country. Regarding